Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real People, Real Health. This afternoon, I am excited to have in the studio Dr. Tony Jimenez. He's the founder of Hope for Cancer, as well as one of my favorite guests, Kate Malvenan, who is actually coming in from Cancun, Mexico. Welcome to the studio, Kate and Dr. Tony.
It's a pleasure.
Hola from Mexico. Hello, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Jay and Kate. You're looking good, Kate.
I'm feeling good, Dr. Tony. Feeling good. Thanks to you, my friend. Yeah, feeling good.
So it was just a couple of 24 hours ago. It was back in March, around the 12th of March, that I had invited Kate in to do her first show with me. And it was shortly after she had exited out of her last treatment, 3-week period at Hope for Cancer down in Cancun. And shortly thereafter, I invited Dr. Tony to come in, and he came in to talk and really explain what Hope for Cancer does and why you started the holistic treatment center and what type of successes you have had over the couple of decades that you have been managing and bringing hope to people that have been diagnosed with cancer specifically. I met you, Kate, early on, I think sometime maybe in February.
Yeah.
And when I met you through Facebook and your feed, and I then started to follow you through your Instagram feed, It's Not Kate's Time, I was very taken aback and impressed by how you were so willing to show such vulnerability and share your journey of your life, probably the biggest battle, the biggest fight that you had to show up for. For those that are maybe turning in for the first time, if you could take a few minutes to maybe just share a brief background as to what your diagnosis was and what your prognosis was. Kate, by the way, is from Australia. She just happens to be in Cancun, Mexico, getting her treatment, completing her treatment. She's been here just shy of 3 weeks at Hope for Cancer. But Kate, if you may, for a few minutes, just take some time just to share a little bit of your background, and then we'll go from there.
Of course. So, in October last year, so 2018, I'd had a few aches and pains throughout the year. I'd coughed some blood. My doctor told me it was bronchitis. I coughed some more blood, bronchitis again. Sadly, in October, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. My primary was in my lung, and it had metastasized. It was in my liver, my lymph nodes, my hips, spine, ribs, shoulders. And that very same day, I was offered palliative care, palliative chemotherapy, palliative radiation, and told I may have only as little as 6 months to live. If the palliative chemo and radio were to work, it might give me a year to 2 years. That was 8 months ago. I am a solo parent of a 3-year-old, my little girl Annabelle, beautiful thing. And I sort of looked down to her, and I said, this can't happen. This cannot happen. There's no way. So only for 2 days, I did believe the prognosis. I did think I was going to die. So I made arrangements for my daughter. I wrote my will. Then I was very, very lucky to stumble across Dr. Tony's clinic, Hope for Cancer in Mexico. A friend reached out and said, there are other ways, Kate. You do not have to stick to the system. The medical system's still in Australia. There are other ways. So within 2 weeks, I booked flights. Within 3 weeks, I was here in Cancun. And I did my first round of treatment. In the first 3 weeks, so in just 21 days, I would say perhaps 50% of my cancer disappeared. I had 7 cancerous lymph nodes in my throat. They're now completely gone. The tumor in my lung had decreased by 50%. My tumor in my liver had decreased by 50% also. So the results were absolutely phenomenal. You've never seen a happier Kate in your life. So I went home very, very happy from that.
When you walked into Hope for Cancer the first day, did you walk in to Hope for Cancer? Were you able to walk in without the assistance of a wheelchair? And
Oh, look,
well,
I am
that's,
just about. In Australia, along with the aches and pains, my feet had stopped working. They'd seized up. I couldn't get to the bathroom. I couldn't sort of stand up without holding onto a wall. I'd have friends come over while I sat on the couch, and they could help me get my daughter's dinner and things. I never resorted to a wheelchair, but I was on the brink of buying a Segway. I thought, well, if I'm not going to walk, at least I'm going to look cool not walking. So I did have to decide which clinic I'd go to, whether I'd go to the in-house clinic in Tijuana and stay in the hospital there so that I didn't have to walk, or whether I'd come to Cancun. I'm lucky I chose Cancun. It's a beautiful place to come and heal. But yeah, I was slightly crippled with pain when I walked into the clinic. After 4, 5, 6 days, I was absolutely back to normal, walking freely, happily, and pain-free.
just prior to making a decision to sign up for Hope for Cancer, what was the alternative that your doctors, that your medical team had given to you? What was the bottom line treatment that they provided to you, that they said that, what were your choices, if any?
Oh, you're making me cry now. It takes me back to a very negative place, a very dark place in my life. So the hospital were very excited. They put me on a targeted therapy drug. They were excited that I could go onto this drug. But they still only said, if that drug works, we will only give you 24 months to live. And for me, that is not enough, not nearly enough. I'm a mum, I'm a mummy, my little girl needs me. So that was it. But it was all palliative. The word is strictly written as palliative care we will offer you. And I still get calls now saying, hey, can we help you with palliative care? So there were no options given to me. To me, that wasn't an option at all. So people often say, hey, wow, you're amazing, you're so brave, you went to Mexico, you didn't know what. I had no other option. If I had another option, I might have taken it. So I'm not the trailblazer that people think I am. There was nothing else for me to do. So in desperation to live, I signed up to come to Hope for Mexico. And by far, it was the best decision I have ever made in my life.
Doc, what do you think about what Kate's saying right now? What's your perspective on what you just shared?
Well, Jace and Kate, Kate is the hero. If I would describe Kate, I would use words like relentless, committed, focus, certainty, not doubt. And that's one of the key points here, because a lot of patients that we have treated throughout the years, Hope for Cancer has been operating for 19 years now. The first clinic was in Tijuana. In the last 5 years, we added the Cancun clinic where Kate is at now. And, patients are there, but some of them are going through the motion. They're there because their father, mother, spouse, sister, brother wants them to be there. But Kate was there with certainty that this is where she wanted to be. This is what's going to give her the outcome she wanted. And boy, it made our work really easy. We just, and her body is responding favorably. And one thing I like to say is that Kate, I was looking at her history, and Kate started with symptoms in January of 2018. That's when you started going to the chiropractor. Remember, Kate? So really, when she was finally diagnosed in about October, at that point, it had been 8, 9 months already of this cancer progressing unbeknownst to the doctors and to Kate. So at the time that she was giving the prognosis, it didn't even include those 8, 9 months when really the cancer was already progressing, and it's just been a phenomenal result. And we're just happy that Kate has really adhered to those 7 key principles that form the foundation of treatment at Hope for Cancer.
Would you be willing to share what those 7 core foundations are, or values are?
Yes, of course. And And if I can, I would like to show my first book that it just was released, Hope for Cancer, 7 Principles to Remove Fear and Empower Your Healing Journey. And the reason I want to show it is because I'll talk about the 7 principles, but the fear part of it, right? Even Kate, who is human, you know, at times she's had some fear, but she's gone through it. You know, she's put that in the back burner, and positive, relentless, mindful, a lot of mindfulness, and really living to live, not living to die. And that's very important for cancer patients to come to grips with that, because a lot of them are living to die because of what they were told, the prognosis that they were given by the expert, you know, the cancer specialist. So Kate is living to live. And so the 7 key principles, number 1 is non-toxic cancer therapies. And there's a whole array of those. Unlike the palliative drug options that Kate was potentially given, you know, the tyrosine kinase inhibitors, they block certain enzyme. And the side effects of those drugs are liver toxicity. She already had liver metastasis, lung inflammation, and shortness of breath. She had a lung tumor, you know, so the same drugs that can potentially be used for palliative were going to affect the organs where the tumor was, where, you know, where there was cancer. So non-toxic treatments for cancer is key within the 7 key principle philosophy. Number 2 is oxygenation. And Kate was not a smoker. So that was interesting, right, Kate? Because
Absolutely, absolutely.
right, because we think, you know, lung cancer is mostly in smokers, but there is a percentage of patients, about 20 or so % of patients with lung cancer will never smoke. So oxygenation is key here. And this is another thing I wanted to say about Kate, is that one of her mantras is to move. You know, when she came to the clinic, her movement was quite limited, but movement, Kate has always, as far as I know, she's really wanted to move, whether it's yoga, whether it's dancing, that she likes to dance, you know. She's always wanted to move.
Badly.
Yes. And I always tell our cancer patients, move, 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 move. We need that oxygen. The 3rd key principle is immune modulation and immune enhancement, because we know that the immune system protects us from a cold to cancer and everything in between. The 4th one is detoxification. And the first area we have to detoxify is our thoughts and our emotions, right? And then the 5th one is nutrition. And, you know, that's quite a extensive topic, but mainly to make healthy, life-giving choices, you know, eating things that you could put in the soil and they will grow. If you put a piece of steak in the dirt, it's not going to grow, it's going to rot, right? So we need to consume foods that are life-giving. And then the next key principle is the emotional spiritual. And that's actually, in my opinion, the most important one, because Hope for Cancer, we could have the best therapies in the world, but if the patients are not emotionally and spiritually vested in their healing, it's very difficult, very difficult. And remember, healing occurs at the spiritual, the emotion, and then the physical level. And then the last key principle, the microbiome, the intestinal health, and being in balance with the external microbiome and the internal one. So cancer is really a disease of the terrain. So we have to clean the inner terrain and do the best we can with the outside environmental terrain.
Kate, of the 7 principles, which one was the most difficult for you, if any?
I'm sorry, Jay, I'm just losing you a bit here.
I asked, of the 7 principles, did you find any of those 7 to be challenging for you?
No.
Okay.
When you're given a prognosis such as mine, you go to the ends of the earth to do anything you can and everything you can. So every one of those principles that Dr. Tony mentioned resonated so perfectly well with the no, nothing was challenging. Dr. Tony Jimenez is like my God. So when God speaks, you listen. So whatever Tony instructs, I follow to the T.
Prior to the diagnosis, Kate, had you explored or were you living a lifestyle that leaned into more of a natural, holistic, alternative lifestyle, or where were you when I asked the question? Because I could tell you before I hit my own rock bottom, I really had no exposure in my life to alternative treatments, alternative lifestyle of any kind. I didn't really place much value on nutrition. I ate what I wanted to eat, especially when I was, let's say, suffering of some sort, emotional suffering. So I reached for comfort food. And so from that perspective, and all perspectives, even from medicine, when I get sick, I'd run to the doctor for treatment, which always included a pharmaceutical prescription. And so I really had very little limited exposure to that. There are other choices out there in life that don't necessarily include a prescription and in fact can include alternative treatments and ways to live. So I'm curious, were you introduced to it? Was it part of your lifestyle, or was this brand new? Looks like Kate's having a bit of a difficulty with a Wi-Fi coming in. Doc, until she comes back in, what I'd like to ask you to do perhaps is maybe Doc actually has a video that he took of Kate when she first came back in for treatment this time around. As I mentioned, I asked Kate when she first started, when she came in the first time, was she able to come in on her own 2 feet? And she said yes, but barely. She was in so much pain, she could barely walk. I'd like to see if you could pull up that video that you shot of Kate just a week or two ago.
Yes, Jay, this is dated June 8th, 2019. So that was, 14 days ago. And it's, when you're a Hope for Cancer patient, you're more than just a patient, you're part of the family. And here we had a little outing in the beach in Cancun 2 weeks ago. And my wife and Kate are running sprints on the beach. And so that's the video that I will show. It's a very quick video. So imagine that, Jay, someone that has bone metastasis, was told to go into palliative care 9 months ago, hip metastasis in different parts of her bones. And for her, this is just a quick video, but she ran 4 sprints that day with no pain, laughing as you just heard. I mean, every time I see this video, it just, it's undescribable, the feeling, right? Because that's another beautiful soul, beautiful spirit of a young child that is doing so well. What more can I ask as a healer in my work? This says it all.
Kate, I'd like to ask you if you could go back just a moment. Can you hear me now, Kate? She's here, but she's not here. Okay, we'll continue the conversation. Kate, can you hear me at this moment?
I've just got you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm cutting out. But
it's okay.
Right now.
This is just a metaphor for life. There are things that we have control over. There are things we have control over, and there are things that we don't.
That's right.
And it's really not how we react, but how we respond that makes a difference if we stay healthy or not. If we get sucked into the vortex of discomfort, or if we embrace it and realize that it's here for a reason. And there's something that we are supposed to be learning from this moment, from this experience. Earlier in our conversation, Kate, you got a bit teary-eyed, you got emotional.
Yeah.
And I'd like to
Yeah,
go
I do.
back. I'd like to go back to that moment with you, if I may, and ask you if you could tap into, in this moment, what was behind that for you? What was the emotion that was bubbling up?
You took me back to a very frightening place in my life where I suddenly all control had been taken from me. The people that we look up to in life, whether that be a doctor, a solicitor, a policeman, you know, doctors and specialists. In as little as 20 weeks, I may be tired, I may die at 40. That again, it just hard to move away from. Now, I don't ever want to forget those words. Look, there's nothing we can do for you. I don't want to forget that, because it shows me how far I've come with the help and the support and guidance of Dr. Tony and his clinic here in Cancun. But it's, yeah, and I feel very strongly that that's how I want to, that's those same words, and I want to let them know that there are other options, there are other directions, there are other pathways. Just, yeah, it's resonated with me very deeply, that we need to start thinking outside the box, and we can't be listening to those doctors, those GPs, those MDs that say, look, your life's going to be over soon, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. And I want to fly the flag for the clinic. I want the world to know that this clinic does exist. We need to be, there needs to be a beacon out there saying that, you know, there are options.
Beautiful. Kate, I had asked you when I lost you earlier, from your perspective, how much of holistic lifestyle were you aware of, or were you living or embraced prior to the diagnosis, or is this a new way of living for you?
It's completely new. I mean, look, I was what I would consider healthy. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I I don't take too much sun. I like fresh air. I eat chicken, fish, salad. But I've always listened to my doctor. You know, if I'm sick, I go to the doctor. I go to the chemist. I fill out a prescription. It's the first port of call that you go to a doctor. I don't now. No, I have, I go to naturopaths, and I eat only organically. I shop at, small local farms as opposed to the supermarkets. Life has changed dramatically, but in saying, this is a very happy, healthy place. You see,
Well, Doc, we'll wait for her to come on. We'll keep the conversation going. What really strikes me is that she basically just shared her truth, which was that prior to the diagnosis, she was basically living a modern style, a typical modern woman's lifestyle, which was, her belief system is how she lived her life, which was based on, she thought she was healthy. She went to the gym, she was fit, she exercised. But she also ran to the doctors when she wasn't feeling well, and leaned into the doctors and had put all her faith and trust, and that what they were providing to her was the right and only solution. What strikes me about that is not uncommon, because that's millions and millions, if not billions of people live that way globally. What do you think was different for Kate? How did she end up at Hope for Cancer? Now, I know she shared that part of the story, but it's just, you can't make it up. Like, how do you go from being told that we can't do anything to really get your cancer in remission, but we can give you a medicine that may prolong your life for up to 24 months, basically a death sentence with a timeline,
Yes.
which is not uncommon.
Yes, and before going into that part of the question or the comment, Jay, I like to point out that the great majority of our patients, I would say 70% of our patients, say that they've never been sick a day in their life. You know, they never had colds, they never had any flus, and so it's like someone that goes to boot camp in the military, but they never go to battle. So would you want that person to defend you, or you want someone who's been, you know, to Afghanistan a few times, right? Who knows the rope? And so I cherish when I get a cold or when I get a fever. And of course, I don't run to the antibiotic or any inflammatory drug. I support that. Let my immune system build the immunological memory. That's part of the adaptive immune system. The short-acting immune system is called the innate immune system. That's the quick one. So it's important to realize that even though, you know, you seem to be okay, you're eating healthy, you're going to the gym, we really need to take health more so in the preventive field, because conventional doctors, as you know, Jay, they're just looking for disease. They're not checking parameters to see truly what your nutritional status is, what your gut health is, how are you emotionally. So again, we're going back to those 7 key principles. And I think that for sure, all the viewers should be proactive about their health, right? I feel great, but I'm doing saunas, I'm doing coffee enemas, I'm eating healthy, I'm getting my extensive checkups every year. I do it a week before my birthday. That way it's a good birthday present and I remember when it's due, right? So I do checkups every year at that time. So that's important to be more proactive, because a conventional doctor, he's just looking for things out of whack in your blood test. But when they are out of whack in the blood test, before that happened, they're out of whack in the cell level, and that's when we really have to get to the preventive mode. So with someone like Kate, and you know, coming to the diagnosis and being proactive is so important, because she had a mission, she had a passion, she had a plan, and she knew where she wanted to be a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I'm glad Kate is back to because she's the hero of this. She's the hero of this trio here.
Well, the beautiful thing is watching Kate in action right now. Kate, how you are managing this challenge that you have with Wi-Fi. Shows how resilient you are. You don't give up. You don't throw in a towel.
No.
There have been many days, even in this treatment period that you're in, you've had moments where you had to surrender to the moment they couldn't get the IV, the needle, into a vein.
Yeah.
And there were days where, you know, you had multiple nurses and people on a staff trying to get you going, and they just weren't able to. And
No.
some days you just had to be willing to say, you know, just for today, we're going to have to take a different approach. We're going to have to do something different.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You have to be open to it. As you say, it's sometimes it's an unwritten book, really, as to how the future will unfold. But predominantly, I've had a good run. You know, everything's worked out wonderfully well. I'm feeling incredibly happy. Very thankful to be here. My veins have had a few stabbings over the last 3 weeks, but for every IV, I'm thankful. The nurses are amazing. I couldn't be more blessed right now.
Questions come in. By the way, I'd like to take a moment to just welcome those that are joining us live in the studio, in the community, that are watching us on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us and supporting the work that Dr. Tony does, and the courage and the spirit with which Kate has showed up for so many months, day after day. No matter how she's feeling, she shows up and she posts a part of her reality on Instagram and Facebook. If you are watching us even on replay, the great news is you're not too early, you're not too late, you are just on time, your time. But we do appreciate you supporting the work that we do, all three of us, the work that we're doing in our own way. Kate, a question that has come up in the community today, which is a common question that I often ask myself when I look at let's say a diagnosis that I receive is why? And so the question really is, do you have a sense, and looking at your own, let's say, backstory, what precipitated, why do you think you ended up with cancer?
That's a subject I don't go into very often, but I will do that with you, Jay and Tony, today. So my marriage broke down due to my husband's addiction to methamphetamine, to ice. He was the most amazing, beautiful, fun, friendly individual I've ever met. He was the absolute love of my life, and behind closed doors, and without my knowledge, when I was pregnant with our little girl, he was becoming more and more addicted. I had no idea. So it's led to him, we separated. He's been living on the streets, using intravenously. I've lost my husband. As far as I know, he's still alive. I wouldn't know, but as far as I know, he's still alive. We've not seen him for 2 years. Exactly. Since that, they do say you hold grief in your lungs, and I've since been diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. So I wholeheartedly believe that depression, anxiety, stress, upset, and grief have caused me to be where I am now. And through that, I've had to turn this around. And I look at my beautiful little girl and think, you've lost your father. There's no way I'm going to allow you to lose your mummy. So with all the negativity, I've had to throw that forwards and be positive and be open to challenges, and say that I will not be dragged backwards by my own emotions, by the weight of depression and sadness. I have learned the act of forgiveness, I suppose, through this. It's a new changed Kate, who's looking forward now. So yeah, I really do think that's entirely what caused me to be here now.
Kate, I want to take a moment just to thank you and honor you for having the courage in this moment to share a very vulnerable part of your story, that it was just a few months ago that you weren't ready to do that. You had shared that with me personally, but you said it's off topic. It's not something you were willing to share with the community. Yeah. And, it really, it gets me in a moment, because when I could see how much growth you have accomplished just in these few months, to now be willing to step forward and share this part of your story, because this is what I learned in my own healing journey, is that we're only as sick as our secrets.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And what that means to me, Kate, is that if we're holding on to any part of our story that caused us harm and it keeps us in that state of inner pain, we're still living in inner bondage. And that's that inner bondage that precipitates us ending up getting sick of some kind of disease.
Yes.
And so the more you are willing to purge your backstory and just put it out there, because it doesn't define who you are at all. Even what transpired with your husband is not a reflection on you. That was your husband's doing. It was his choice. You were not responsible for his choices and his behavior. The only thing you're responsible for is your own.
Yeah.
And the fact that you are willing to come forward today, I thank you and I honor you for having the courage one more time to up your game. You're like, it's beautiful to have seen the progress that you made, and I'm so happy.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. I do. Thank you.
How do you feel in this moment right now? Now that you just shared one more piece of your story.
Oh, yeah, it was. It wasn't something I'd prepare. I wasn't prepared to do that, but I feel very comfortable. You provide a safe place for me to do that. So it is things you have to let go of, and it is, as you say, it's a pathway, and it's stepping stones moving in the right direction. You do have to open up, and you do have to shed the weight on your shoulders, whatever that may be. But yeah, I appreciate your kind words, and what you say does resonate, and it does enforce what I just did there. So yeah, I thank you for that. I really do.
You're welcome, Kate. Doc, what do you think about what's going on here right now?
Oh, I love it. And I also want to congratulate Kate because this is not easy, but every time, especially in this forum where, there's viewers, it's live, and you're saying these words, you're talking about your emotional and conflict challenges. It's like another weight is off of you, Kate. And now another reason why this cancer has no reason to be, because we know that every person with cancer has an emotion or emotions attached to that tumor or those lesions or those lymph nodes. So this is just another huge step, in my opinion, Kate, on your way to total health and recovery, because you just said it publicly, right? And maybe you have before, but what I see, the emotion coming out this moment is huge, and I'm just so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Tony.
And I want to say a little story, if I may, Jay. It's a story, and I think Kate heard this before, but it's so powerful. I think it goes along with what we're saying. It happened in Africa. There was a tribal leader and his faithful companion, and they go hunting every week. And so, one day they go hunting, and the tribal leader, he shoots off his thumb accidentally with a shotgun. And the faithful companion says, "This is good. This is good." And that was his saying every time, "This is good." And so, the tribal leader is like, "What's so good about this?" And on the way back to the village, he thinks, "I have to imprison this companion because, he's saying that shooting my thumb off is good." So he puts him in jail. And every week, he goes on his hunting expedition. A year later, the faithful companion is still in jail, and the tribal leader is in a hunting expedition, as he does every week. But he runs into these cannibals, and the cannibals kidnap him, and they're ready to, do what cannibals do, is eat you. But one of the rules in cannibalism in these cannibal villages is that the person has to be complete. You can't be missing anything. So when they checked the tribal leader, they saw that his thumb was missing. And so they released him because he was missing, a part of his body. So as the tribal leader is going back to the village, he's thinking about his faithful companion saying, "This is good." And so maybe, wow, it was good that I blew my finger off, because if not, I would have been eaten. So he goes to the jail cell and he apologizes to his faithful companion. And he said, "Now I understand why you meant what this is good. And so, I'm really sorry, and I want to release you from jail. And I really apologize for you being in jail for a year." And what does the faithful companion say? "This is good. This is good." And the tribal leaders, "Well, what's so good about you being in jail for a year?" He said, "Well, if I wasn't in jail, I would have been hunting with you, and I would have run into the cannibals with you as well, and they would have eaten me." Right? So the point of the story is, as we're going through these challenges in life and ups and downs, if we learn to think positive and say, "This is good," because as Kate knew from the beginning, this cancer was a reason for her to even do greater things in her life and go past that, that situation with her husband, and do greater things for her daughter. I mean, you were already a great mom. Imagine how you are now, right, Kate? You're like a super duper mom, right? So this is good. This is good.
This is good.
Doctor, you bring up, I love that story, by the way, and thank you for sharing that. But you bring up a valid question, which is, so many people that are fortunate enough to have cancer go into remission, once they finish their treatment, and I've watched this, I've witnessed it with people in my personal life, they go back to the routine. They go back to how life was. And my question I'll ask Dr. Tony, you first, if you may give your perspective, and then Kate, I'll welcome yours as well, is what do we have to do? What do those that you find that are cancer-free in 5 years or longer, what are they doing differently than those that have not, that you find out they didn't make it or the cancer returns?
Right.
What is the
Well,
game changer?
yeah, one thing I could say, and going back to the 7 key principles, right? And their foundational, because 6 of these principles, Jay, they're for all of us, right? So we have to boost our immune system. We have to oxygenate. We have to detox. We have to work on the emotional, spiritual, nutrition, and the microbiome, the gut health. So what I find is that the patients that do well are the ones that really are adhering to those lifestyle changes and not going back to the same habits and things that cause the cancer to develop. Because as I said earlier, cancer is because of the terrain, a terrain that favored it. You know, it's unfortunate because in our Tijuana clinic, which is an inpatient facility, after the patients leave 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, and the cleaning crew goes to the room, they find Doritos. They find, you know, even liquor hidden in the drawers in the patient room. So I'm thinking, what's going to happen when they go home? This was in a somewhat controlled environment where, you know, they're in a clinic, right? They're in a treatment center. And one thing I can say about Kate is that she grabbed the bull by the horns and she was doing what it takes to do. And this is for the rest of her life, as it should be the rest of your life, Jay, and the rest of my life as well, right? In the preventive form. So it's really important to realize that cancer didn't occur overnight. This is a long process, maybe 5 to 10 to 15 years for that tumor to be found. And so it's a life journey, and it's a beautiful journey. It's one of healing. It's one of realization. It's one of discovery. It's one of growth. It's positive.
Doc, I'd like to ask you from your perspective, now that we're on this topic, not everybody that walks into your facility, let's say has faith or has a relationship of any kind greater than self, referred to as God. And some have never had either religion or faith in their life. How does that work for someone who steps in to your treatment center when in fact that is one of your 7 principles? Are you able to create a space for them where they start to have some type of connection of faith or spirituality or belief of some kind? How does that work? And what does that look like for those that are not able to?
Well, I'll start with a story. We had a visitor from Latvia, which is a former Soviet Union country. And, you know, those people, the prototype is they're very stoic. They don't show emotion. They couldn't even express their, you know, spiritual beliefs at that time. And so this visitor comes to our clinic in Tijuana, and then he visits the clinic. Then he goes back to our office in San Diego. And I said, hey, his name was Andres. I said, Andres, how was your visit? He goes, oh, Tijuana, not pretty at all. But when I walk in the clinic, I feel these molecules. I just don't understand, but it's very different, right? And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about the Hope for Cancer family. Our 4 core principles are faith, hope, love, and gratitude. And as Kate can attest, and I'm not influencing your attestment here, Kate, but as you can attest, once you walk into the doors of either the Tijuana, you haven't been there yet, but the Cancun clinic, that's what you feel. You feel that you're not another number. You feel love, you get a hug, you know, you get smiles. And when that happens, love just makes things happen exponentially. So I think in this society, in this medical system that we're in now in 2019, it's lacking. It's lacking. I was just at the UCLA Ronald Reagan Medical Center this past weekend at the neurosurgery department, and you see all these doctors, and they're high prestigious doctors, you know, great positions. They're like robots. They're not smiling, you know, they're just it's like robots. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad I'm not one of them. You know, I'm glad that we're showing our patients love, we're hugging our patients, we're smiling, we're telling jokes, because, you know, cancer is a bump in the road. We have to live life. We have to look at the glass half full and not half empty. So that, if I don't know if I answered your question, Dave, but that's,
You did. You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it, because it's a different experience. You're creating a safe space environment where miracles do unfold.
That's right.
And they unfold because when I suspect that when patients like Kate walk in, they are so desperate for answers. They're open. They're like, help.
Yes.
Help. I surrender, because there's no other place to go.
And even in that surrender, it's not like she's surrendering to what the doctor is going to say and that's it. It's a surrender in a partnership, in a feedback loop, well, which is not the doctor in a pedestal, you know, with the white coat. It's that communication, that information, that love between doctor, patient, in the good sense of the word, and that's where the essence of healing is.
What happens when you create that type of environment, as you described, with love and kindness and gratitude and faith, it's what's behind all that is positive energy.
Mm-hmm.
And what you described, your experience of walking into, I think you said UCLA, is one of the energy is much different. I don't want to say it's good or bad. It's very different.
Right.
And it's, in my opinion, it's counterproductive to wellness. It just perpetuates the energy of fear and not faith. And I have learned in my own healing journey is that I can't live in faith and fear in the same breath, in the same moment. I have to choose in that moment. Where do I want to be in my thoughts, in my thinking, and in my behavior? Am I going to stay in fear, or am I going to tell fear to get in the back seat and lean into faith, whatever that faith may be? And so, Kate, I would like to ask you, how have you changed, or what has been your experience when you walked into Hope for Cancer for the first time? How has faith for you changed, and/or spirituality of any kind or of such?
Yeah, I think Dr. Tony mentioned before, the openness. I've just opened myself up to whatever may be. I've allowed my thinking to change. I have loosened my shoulders. I've exhaled. I've relaxed. I've just been enveloped in, you know, the arms of this clinic, the care, the love, the nurture. When I come to Cancun, I really do exhale, and I know before the night before I started the clinic, I cry, and it's tears of relief that I am back at this clinic. The doctors will take care of me, the nurses will take care of me, the driver will pick me up in the morning, the masseuse will, you know, it's just, I don't have to doctor myself anymore. So it's I'm more open now. My mind is open, beautiful. My heart is open. It's a beautiful place to be. It really is.
Yes, and yes.
Yes.
That's so affirming, Kate. You know, I kind of feel something else coming up for me in this moment right now, which is not to discount what you just said, but to add on to it. Is it possible that part of what was behind the emotional tears the night before was just you coming from a different space? Perhaps maybe before this whole experience, you may have lived a lot of your life in a space of what we refer to as super ego or ego. And maybe you have expanded And you have grown to the point where the night before you could understand what humility feels like. Humility for the gifts that you have been given through this process of saving your own life. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think it's, I would agree with that, but it's also control as well. Like I have to control my own life. I'm in control. I have control. I take control. When you come to a clinic such as Hope for Cancer, you just drop all that control because you just let yourself breathe into here, and everybody else, your team takes control for you. They direct you, they guide you, they love you, they nurture you. You just breathe, you just relax, and you know they hold your hand and they guide you, and it's a beautiful feeling. So you know, in the real world, we have to work and think and have time frames and set alarms. Here you don't. It's a beautiful. It's like a little nest, I suppose. It's like a little nest that you can just snuggle down to and know that you're being taken care of.
You know,
and behind that, go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, from a medical perspective, it's what we call sympathetic and parasympathetic. Most of us are living in a fight or flight. You know, we're in sympathetic dominance, a lot of stress hormone, cholesterol. No wonder the world is so chaotic, and cancer and chronic disease is on the rise because of, you know, it's that fight or flight. And so we need to be more parasympathetic, more in regulation and homeostasis and calmness and functioning the way God intended us to function. And so as Kate is describing now, and I'm so proud of her, she's still listening, but you know, as the patients are going more into that parasympathetic and that letting go and opening the heart, the mind, the spirit to healing, and not, as you said, Jay, not operating in fear, because in fear is when we're, you know, in that fight or flight, right? And that's not conducive to healing. So this is a big thing. Stress hormone decreases, healing increases.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fight or flight is, you know, that's like you said, that's when we get ourselves into trouble, because that dis-ease is what creates a disease. Disease, correct me if I'm wrong, but disease really starts from the mind.
It does. And again, I just allude to the book, but in this book, we talk about the 7 principles to remove fear and empower the healing journey. And what I'm going to do now, and I already started, is write a book for each of the 7 key principles. And guess which one is the next one, Jay? It's the one on the emotional. And here it is. I am finished the first draft of my second book on emotions and cancer. So I'm totally with you. And why did I pick this of the 7 key principles as my next book? Because I'm in the same resonance as you. The disease from the emotional, spiritual is where we really have to focus, and where medicine is not there yet. It was there thousands of years ago, right? Because when someone went to a health facility, they saw the spiritual advisor, the emotional counselor, and then the doctor. But now it's totally inverted, and they forget about the emotional and the spiritual.
What type of support do you and your staff provide from the emotional perspective to the patient while they're in treatment? And is there any follow-up on the back end of that?
Yes, absolutely. We have a program called the BEST program, BEST, behavioral, emotional, and spiritual therapy. So we have practitioners trained in this area. And so we look at the behavior type of the individual. We look at their spiritual, emotional aspect, and they have sessions, private session and also group sessions. And then as they go home, we transition to the home BEST program. And so the patients will have ongoing BEST sessions at home. And this is so important, and I'm glad you brought this up, Jay, because the 3-4 weeks at the clinic is an initial aggressive, non-toxic push. But what happens at home is so vitally important to the long-term outcome. So we've invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, and human resources to the ongoing home program, not only from the therapy's perspective with nutraceuticals and sonophotodynamic therapy and others, but also from the emotional, spiritual.
That's great to hear, Doc. Kate is right now, it looks like I'm not sure if she's going to make it back in or not. And we are about 3 minutes shy of the hour. With what time we do have, I'd like to invite you to perhaps share your own closing thoughts and words. And if Kate comes back on, either way, we're going to invite one of you to share an update on Kate's medical tests and reports that have come back in the last couple of days, because there is some exciting news to share. But while, out of respect to Kate, hopefully she'll make it back in, I'd like to invite you to share some closing thoughts and words to those that are watching us on live or replay. If in fact they have been diagnosed, either going through a cancer treatment, or they know someone who has gone through it or is going through it now.
Yeah, and I will allude to what Kate was talking about when her doctors told her that there weren't any options. There's only palliative care. And please, viewers and listeners, if a doctor tells you this, realize that this is his paradigm. This is his box. There are always options. There are always options. There's always opportunities to healing. And believe me, I've been doing this almost 30 years, seeing thousands of patients. I've been to over 70 countries, and there is always hope. And I could say that to you wholeheartedly, scientifically, and spiritually. I mean, I've seen patients, Kate is one of them. If you look at the National Cancer Institute statistics, patient in stage 4 lung cancer with metastasis to the liver and to the bone, their prognosis is very poor, very poor, not only at long term, but at short term. And so we've had patients in wheelchairs and stretchers. Some of them are able to live much longer with good quality of life. Others go into complete remission, but there's always hope. And if a doctor tells you there's nothing to do, look, research. And Hope for Cancer, the number 4.com is a good resource for you to look at different options, to learn the 7 key principles, and to be empowered, be proactive, and have that positive, strong attitude.
What would you say is, from your perspective, the average success rate that Hope for Cancer has experienced utilizing? I understand you have had third-party research done, or as far as, I don't know if it was for you directly or for holistic treatment alternatives as a whole.
Yes, we hired a third party, Jay, to look at our stats, and it's an ongoing retrospective study that we want to do for 5 years. It's in the 3rd year now. And what they found is that of 365 patients randomly chosen, 92% of them were in stage 4. That means they weren't given any options, or they failed all conventional therapies. And our 1-year survival for those patients was almost 80%. 2-year survival is 77%. And now we're looking at the 3rd year, 4th year, and 5th year. They calculated statistically that by 5 years, we'll still be above 70% 5-year survival for stage 4 cancer patients. If you compare that to the gold standard, the National Cancer Institute SEER data, that's the surveillance, epidemiology, and end-stage data, their statistics is about 26%. So we're almost 3 times the success rate that they have. And that's not even stage 4. Those are stages 1 and 2, and some stage 3. So it's tremendous what non-toxic 7 key principle treatment approach can achieve.
Those numbers are beyond staggering. I mean, the contrast is so significant. I would hope that you'd have a 100-year waiting list to get in. And I know that's not true. What do you think is the roadblock for an average person globally that has a diagnosis that prevents them from entering the doors of Hope for Cancer to save their life?
There's a few roadblocks, and the first roadblock that I like to talk about is, and we're working on that. We're working on this, Jay, right now with shows like the one you do, Heal Mind, Body and Soul, is that we're providing education. And the first roadblock is lack of knowledge, lack of information, lack of education, because Kate was blessed that someone told her about Hope for Cancer. But if not, if she doesn't know, she would have been another part of their statistics, right? And so shows like this, episodes, your blogs, your podcasts, all this information that we are providing to the world is so important because they need to know that there's more than just chemo, radiation, surgery, and conventional immunotherapy. So that's the first roadblock. People just don't know. The second roadblock is that they think that because we're not in the US, we're in Mexico, Asia, and we have a clinic in South America as well. They think because we're not in the US, this is not, it's not science-based. And if you look at our website, if you get my book, you'll see that all these therapies are science-based. They're publications. We had our 7 key principles actually published in a peer-reviewed journal in 2012. So, there's a lot of science behind this. The third roadblock is finances, because unfortunately, insurances in the US don't cover treatments outside the country, or even inside the country, they don't cover holistic, integrative, alternative type therapies, but they do cover chemo and radiation that cost 1,000 times more. So finances is one of the roadblocks, and also pressure from the doctors. That fear word comes into play, where the doctors say, if you don't do this chemo or this surgery or this radiation right now, you're going to die. And so before the patient's able to blink, Jay, they already have a port, they're under the knife or they're getting the chemo. And so cancer is seldom a medical emergency. Please realize that, listeners and viewers, cancer is seldom a medical emergency. So if you have been diagnosed with cancer, there is time to think, there's time to do a research, with a few exceptions, but those are the exceptions. So there's time to think, there's time to go into that parasympathetic calm mode and seek inside the inner guidance, the Holy Spirit speaking with you, that inner wisdom, and you'll make the right decision as to what treatment approach you want to make.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Tony. What I'd like to do, it doesn't appear as though Kate's going to make it back in. Perhaps you would like to share Kate's progress and where she was at in her numbers when she first came in. And based on test results, I understand you don't have all of the results back yet, but you have enough results to share some significant improvements. Some people like to use the word miraculous. I suspect that you may not really embrace the word miracles or miraculous, because what you're doing is there's science behind it. It's not miracles. There are miracles that take place, but I believe that you guys have laser focus. You have a program that has had some significant success. So would you agree with me? Is it what you're doing? Are there miracles taking place there, or is it just science-based work that's unfolding?
Well, Jay, I'm a godly person, and I think God heals and the doctor takes the fee. So definitely God's hand and power is within us and in us, and that's the key to healing. I don't heal anyone. I just provide the tools. My team, we have an amazing staff of doctor, nurses, and chefs and nutritionists and support staff. So it's a combination of everything. And I think that might be, whether we call it miracles or we call it whatever, but the outcome is what we're all here for. And we're just blessed. We're just blessed. God has favor on us, and we give him all the glory, right? We give him all the glory. And with respect to numbers, I'm looking at Kate's chart here. So when she came to us in October of 2018, she not only had a big tumor in the lung, the upper right lung, which the right side of the body is related to the male figure. And remember the story she told us about her husband, right? So a link there, male, right side, husband, conflicts, and so forth. So that tumor is practically unnoticeable now. After 3 weeks at the clinic, it had reduced by 75%. And this is what got Kate in the limelight, you know, in social media and being interviewed with news agencies in the UK and also in Australia, because she was actually born in the UK and has lived in Australia most of her life. So at that time, we had a significant reduction in the tumor in the lung. As she pointed out, the lymph nodes were clean. The liver lesion was decreasing in size. The bones were stable, no growth. And she had fluid in the lung as well. I was looking at the radiology reports, and fluid in the lung, which is called pleural effusion, that left in November of 2018, just 3 weeks after she was in the clinic. The fluid was gone. The tumors didn't show any blood flow, and that's so important because cancer cells need increased blood flow. The medical word is angiogenesis, to grow and progress and metastasize. So that was happening at that time. Her white blood cells, her immune system were rather low. Her protein, the main protein in the body is albumin, and that was low as well. And that's been improving nicely. So there's no thickening of the pleural lining. That's the membrane that lines the lung that has been resolved. So going back to now, which is the last testing we have here, is June 20th of 2019, which is just 2 days ago. All we have now is stable bone metastasis. But as you saw in the short clip that I presented, she's running, she's active, no pain, really asymptomatic. And so we're still working on those bone lesions. The lung is resolved, the liver is resolved, the lymph nodes are resolved. And if we look at the blood tests, as I said, the liver enzymes have always been normal, so we've maintained that. The inflammation markers, Jay, you know how prominent and important inflammation is in cancer. Her CRP, C-reactive protein, which is a measure of inflammation, that should be less than 1. And in October of last year, 2018, it was 9.8 per C-reactive protein. Hi, Jay. Hi, Kate. Now her CRP is 0.
Here I am.
Yeah. So
Wait a minute. So our CRP went from 9 down to 0.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So we're
Amazing.
talking about your results, Kate, and I talked about the scan results, but maybe you could continue about the lab reports that I was just going to read off.
Oh, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. So every single marker has come down to a normal range. So
Yeah, one of the markers that was significantly high for Kate, which was one of the red flags initially, was a marker called the CA125, which is a tumor marker. That should be less than about 30, and hers was 154. And now it's 21.8, 21.8. Her CEA, carcinoembryonic antigen, another marker, was 211. That should be below 5. And now it's 5.3 from 211. And other markers as well were significantly high. One was 110, and now that marker is 15. That marker is the CA2729. So as Kate said, you know, all her markers are in the normal range. Albumin, the most important protein, is beautifully at 4.4. So we're looking.
What should that one be at?
That should be, well, if you look at a blood test, and any doctor will tell you 3.5 and above is good. Kate was 3.1 initially. However, Jay, I like that marker, the albumin, to be 4 or above, because in my clinical experience, when the albumin is 4 or above, patients fare better, they have a better long-term prognosis. And Kate was 3.1, now it's 4.4.
4.4. Beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
I've been doing this for 24 hours now, smiling.
So Dr. Tony, where does Kate go from here now that she's got some incredible test results that came back on June 20th, 2 days ago? She's got 2 days left in your treatment center. She goes back home, and she's gonna be traveling for about a month or so. However, she also announced that she's been invited back to participate in a new show, some type of reality show. Will you share with the viewers exactly what that's about and what role she's gonna be playing in, because Kate, you've been living your own reality show.
Oh, yeah, I really have.
Started out as a nightmare. It started out as a nightmare, Kate, and look where you've come. Look how far you've come in less than a year. So why don't you share with us what this show is about, the name of the show, and what your vision of the show is, Dr. Tony?
Yeah, no one better to be in a reality show than Kate for other reasons that we've discussed on this show so far. And this reality show, one of the things is it's going to be real. There's not going to be anything fake about it or made up. If not, we wouldn't be a part of that. Neither Kate nor myself nor Hope for Cancer. This will truly be a reality show. It's going to be called 8 Days, and it will air next January, February 2020. So basically, we're going to have 3 current patients that are well, like Kate, and we're going to be in a home in Cancun. And then there'll be a parallel story of 2 new patients that are just coming to Hope for Cancer, for the first time. So we're going to show both of their experiences. It's going to be fun. It's going to be engaging. I'm bringing in my best practitioner, the behavior, emotional, and spiritual therapist from our Tijuana clinic, and also from Dr. Leslie from our Cancun clinic. We're bringing in our nutritionist also, and just a great group of people that will make this a very impactful show to just bring education, bring information, and continue planting those seeds. We're really excited about this. The producer of this show, he actually produced one show previously called Reverse. He was diagnosed with diabetes at an early age, and he wasn't in alignment with what the conventional system was telling him with the insulin shots and the drugs and this and that. And so he went on his own, and naturally he reversed his diabetes. So his first reality show was called Reverse. And so now he thought, how can we help more and more people? And so it was with cancer, and thankfully, we were the chosen clinic to do this, and it's going to be amazing today.
Beautiful. Kate, your smile is so wide right now. How do you feel, first and foremost, most importantly, about your test results from 2 days ago? Share with us how you're feeling about it and how you have processed it, and what does it mean to you today?
Jay, I don't think I have processed it. I don't think I've processed anything from October. I'm still in disbelief that I have terminal cancer or had terminal cancer. I'm going with the flow now. I just hold on. My life is a roller coaster, and I just hold on. I grit my teeth. I've got white knuckles. I'm elated. I'm dancing. Unfortunately, I had no one to celebrate with. I'm here with my 3-year-old. All she wanted to do was have an early night and watch Peppa Pig. I posted a photo of myself on Instagram with me sitting by the pool having a cocktail. That wasn't last night. The reality was I sat watching Peppa Pig with my toddler. But I'm elated. Life is amazing. I feel so privileged. And again with the show, I only was invited last week. I've changed big plans. I'm going to Europe and to get my daughter back to Australia. It's going to be magical. It's going to be so eye-opening, and I hope it's going to reach thousands and thousands, if not millions of people, and open up their eyes again to Hope for Cancer. It will be amazing. It'll be I hope everyone can come to watch.
How long will you be filming? How long will you be out there filming the show?
Well, it just 8 days, and then a couple of days either side, I suppose. We have to all fly in from predominantly America, obviously coming from Australia, and we'll have to wrap up a couple of days. But yeah, it's 8 full days in lockdown in a beautiful house in Cancun. We'll be doing lots of fun things, and as Dr. Tony says, it's going to be very raw, and it is a reality TV show. So it will be exciting. And I don't. That's pretty much all I know. You know as much as I do now. They're not letting too much out of the bag, but I know it'll be one to watch.
What does Kate's treatment look like moving forward with her exiting out in a couple of days? What will she need to do to be able to affirm that she's cancer free? Do you have a sense of that, Tony?
Well, first, she has to remain committed, which I have no doubt about that she will, committed in the whole sense of the word. Within the 7 key principles, again, within her mind, enjoying life. I mean, we can't think that because someone has cancer and is doing treatments that they can enjoy life. She's going to eat yummy food, right? She's going to eat delicious food, healthy food. She's going to have fun. She's going to enjoy the family. She'll take time to do her home program and enjoy it. It's not like a chore or a task. It's something that she's proactively doing to keep her body healthy. And my big advice for Kate is just continue doing what you're doing. And we've actually added a new therapy in her program this time that is quite an interesting molecule that it's unique to Hope for Cancer now. It was a development actually in Europe. So we started that already. And no side effects, non-toxic, but it's sort of like a Trojan horse. It penetrates all tissues in the body as well, bone, brain, lungs, everywhere. So yeah, always innovative, right, Kate? There's always something new at Hope for Cancer research.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Out of respect to your time, I'd like to ask you, Kate, to maybe share some closing thoughts and words to put a pretty bow on a show, and then I'll take us out.
Oh, look, I've gone from soon you're going to die to now you're going to live. So that's all I need. I know that it puts a smile on my day every single day. I wake up happy. I go to sleep happy. I'm anxiety free, stress free. I'm a happy, healthy girl who's going to be living for her daughter for a very long time to come. So I can only his beautiful wife, Marcy, and Hope for Cancer. So it's been a pleasure.
As far as any words for, as I asked Dr. Tony to do, and he's already done it so eloquently, if you could say a few words to someone who may be facing a cancer diagnosis and prognosis, what would you want to say to them? Please say it now.
I would say, please do not see your doctor's word as final. Please do not think that if you are given such a horrific prognosis that is the end for you. You must not. You must take control of your mind, take control of your thinking, take control of your positivity. And I would start researching Hope for Cancer. Make a call, get in contact with their team, and see if they can give you some guidance. So that's what I would say, and that's how I have the path I've been put on. If I'd have listened to my doctor, I would most likely be dead by now. And I'm not. I'm very much alive, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
Beautiful. All right, Doc, anything? Oh, you good?
Oh, I'm just so emotional. I just want to share the love with all the viewers and listeners, of course, with Kate, with you, Jay, and let's just have good intention going forward and knowing that, we're good. This is good.
Beautiful. I want to just take a moment to thank both you, Kate. Kate, you are just an amazing example of pure courage and faith and believing that everything is possible when we just open to
Everything's
receive,
possible.
and that miracles through the work that Dr. Tony provides and others like Dr. Tony, that it's possible. It's possible not only to live to die, but to die to live, that you're living today and you're making those different choices. And you're giving that little beautiful girl, Annabelle, a healthy mom, and a healthier mom than you were even before your diagnosis. And
Most
there's so much,
definitely. Most definitely.
there's so much hope for you and Annabelle, and for the work, Dr. Tony, that you continue to do with your staff. And for that, I am in gratitude for this moment to the two of you, for what the two of you have brought to the show today. Thank you for joining us on Real People, Real Health. And hopefully we'll keep in touch, and we'll stay in touch from time to time. And we'll have a beautiful time with what's left, and enjoy 8 days. Enjoy the experience. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.